you were telling me a story about how your dad was saying his last words to you were something about be nice to your mother because if it wasn't for her, you wouldn't be here.
What last words? No, I'd say when I was, I preteen, I was a young guy. He would always say to me, he says, you better respect your mother because without her, you wouldn't be here. That's all he ever said. Mm. And he said that from when I was a little kid. I never understood I got it now. I understand why he kept saying that. But I didn't understand at the time why he referenced her as being, if it wasn't for your mother, you wouldn't be here. Because it really was her philandering that ended up in having my existence.
When did you come to understand what he meant by that?
I was 19 years old, and I'd gone out because at Luther College, there's that break called interim between the semesters, which is the month of January. When you leave Luther College, the semester's over right before Christmas, and your second semester doesn't start till like the 1st of February. So you've got the month of January, which is basically 3 weeks of time where you can either do something Luther College has come up with that you can do it on campus, some program, or you can go somewhere. You can have an independent study. So I used the independent study clause to go to California and study watercolors with some famous artist. Well, that was this Quinn guy, who I knew about, of course, because he'd been a family friend. And there was this famous dude who was this famous artist who worked for the 20th Century Fox, who knew Orson Welles and knew the guys at Disney, and, he was a big deal in Los Angeles. So I thought, well, that'd be great. I could go out and study with him as an excuse to go to California for 3 weeks. I was in his studio. It dawned on me what had happened here, that this was what happened. It was clear as a bell that this is what had happened and who this guy was.
How did it dawn on you?
What?
How did it dawn on you?
Well, I just put 2 and 2 and 3 and 4 together, and it was clear that, there was, obviously I had not had any brothers and sisters, right?
Yeah, but it dawned on you, but you didn't go and prove. You didn't ask the question, "Are you my father?" Or you didn't do anything to prove. I mean, when you have something like that, you tend to try to figure out whether that's true or not.
Right.
How could you be so sure? And why didn't you ask the question?
Well, first of all, because of my capacity to remember, I could think it through in a timeline as to when I was born. Why did my parents leave California? Why was I always held off like a stranger? Why did everybody look at me with that other kind of eye, like I'm a foreigner? That's how I felt all my life. Treated like some strange entity. And I was unusual. I knew that. Everybody treated me like that. I was always treated like some foreigner. Mm-hmm. I never felt welcome in the family. Either completely, the Ordways didn't have anything to do with me. And when she'd take me back to Pennsylvania, they all treated me like I was some sort of foreigner. And so I had this, I always felt like I didn't belong, and they treated me like I was adopted or something. It felt like that. Mm-hmm. So I already had the feeling that something had happened here. But what? So when I meet this Noel Quinn guy, and he's so nice to me. He's just all over me, nice to me, and he takes me everywhere, and he introduces me to all these important people, and takes me to the first Super Bowl game. This guy treats me like a dad. So him treating me like a dad and welcoming me. He welcomed me into his life, where everybody held me at an arm's length. Mm. Then I realized, well, maybe this is the dude. And because she was so, my mother was always talking about him and having his pictures in our house, and now I get it. This has got to be the dude. I get it now. This is what happened. This is what they're not telling me. And I came away with that just 100% in my head that was what was.
So why did you keep it to yourself? Why didn't you confront your mother or dad or, you know?
Well, I didn't because I figured they obviously never brought it up. They didn't want to talk about it.
But you did talk to your mother about it.
Well, no. What happened was when I turned 21, well, that's a couple of years later, you know, we all turn 21 eventually, don't we? As if that's any big deal. And we were here in Iowa, and my mother gets all goofy and upset and whatnot, and she finally breaks down and tells me that this is what happened. Mm. And my reaction, of course, was, oh, yeah, I knew that.
And what'd she say?
Nothing.
Mm. But your dad never told you that. You never had a conversation with dad about it.
Never.
What was there anything in the end before he died? You said something about he died fighting, right?
Well, yeah, because he was on the edge all the time. Because he's 90 years old, and he'd had these strokes. He's still here. The guy never lost his mind, right? Mm. But he's weak. And I had to pick him up 3 or 4 times, physically pick him up like a bag of oats, throw him over my shoulder, and put him in the car and drive him to the emergency room and get him on oxygen, because he'd be getting pneumonia. You know how they get pneumonia. Mm-hmm. And, a couple, 3 days, he'd be okay, and we'd come home. Mm-hmm. Well, that particular night, when he had his bout, I wasn't here. Mm-hmm. Because the night before, one of my best friends had been killed here, right down the road. And he was having his funeral. And I was in Omaha picking up his best friend from college, who was going to get married, and this guy was going to be best man at his wedding. Mm-hmm. Now he's dead. And I'm picking this guy up 12 o'clock at night or something. There's no place for him to go. I took him to Joanna's house. And then I was going to bring him up the next morning. Well, by the time we get back from the airport, he's settled in. It's, 2 o'clock in the fucking morning, or it's 2:30, and we're sitting in front of the fireplace with big drinks. We poured like double, triple shot drinks and sat down so we could have this conversation, because I'm going to tell him about what happened to his body, because I was there before he got killed. So the last people who saw him alive. So I want to relate this story to him because he wants to know what happened the night before. Well, right in the middle of that, sitting down to make the conversation with him, the phone rings. Mm-hmm. And I'm right next to it. I mean, what in the hell's going on here at 2:30? Mm-hmm. I pick up the phone. It's she says, Walter, your father just died. And I haven't even said anything to this guy about my friend that just got killed. Mm-hmm. Now my father just died. It's on my mind. I'm holding the phone. I look at Schmitty, which is the guy's name. I said, Schmitty, I really don't think I can talk about Jeff right now, because my mother just told me my father died and I got to go home. So I got up. Fortunately, I didn't drink my drink. Got in the car and drove home. But he wasn't at home. He was over in Ottawa at the hospital, and there is corpse. And I walk in, I look at the corpse, and I can see he's still in that clot where they're not flat in his neck. He suffocated to death, but he was fighting, see, all the way to the end to breathe. So he wasn't he didn't give up. He fought till his last moment to live. You could see he was fighting, he was gasping for breath when he died. Mm-hmm. He never relaxed. Mm-hmm. he still had that fight in him.
Mm-hmm.
And my first reaction, I had this huge smile and warm feeling when I looked at this corpse, because I thought, that son of a bitch fought till the end. Really was a man who went down, fighting all the way. He never gave up. He never gave up.
Mm-hmm.
The guy died with his convictions, with his, that's the way I took it anyway.
Mm-hmm.
That he was a real guy, a real person, a real, really. No one penetrated that guy. That guy lived his own life. He took it all the way. He fought till the end.
Was there any conversations that you had that you recall that really bring this point up to you?
No. My father never talked to me in a conversation. He would say.
He never embraced you at all, even to the end, huh? He never.
No.
How he held you at arm's length, didn't want to connect with you?
No, he never touched me. He never hugged me once. He never told me he loved me once in my life. He told me I was lucky to be alive and I should thank my mother. And that was it. So I have what I would consider a really strong rejection complex. If a person rejects me throughout my lifetime, if a person rejects me, I walk away and never turn around again. I don't go try to get to be friends with them or try to get to be buddies with them again or try to make up to them for whatever for whatever reason they reject me. That, especially with girls. If I had a girlfriend and she got feisty with me, and how they act. Sometimes they reject you just because they don't know what else to do, and then you make up, and then you start it again on the relationship. That happens all the time when you're starting a date. And if I had a girl that ever tried to play around on me, or I would never. I mean, it'd be in the end of our date. I'd quit right now and never see her again. I didn't ever chase after girls that I was after. You know what I mean? I wouldn't chase them.
So that's
either they went along with me all the way, or I left them right now.
So that's from your dad then, huh?
Well, it's just this rejection complex, I think. I really suffer from that rejection complex, so that if you trigger it, I walk away. And that's it. Because of this, I think that's why I act that way. I take it pretty hard.
You would think you're used to by after a whole life of that. You're used to by that. It becomes second nature. But I guess you never get used to that.
Apparently, that's all I can say, because it never left me. It's a pillar in my psyche of that, because of that situation, that lack of acceptance. And then the other problem was when you really do get around a family, if you haven't had one, because I didn't have one, you see. We didn't do family things together. We never acted like a family. So when you get around, you have a girlfriend, and she would take you home to her family, and they want to include you. Of course, this is how families are supposed to act. I'd feel really uncomfortable because I'd feel like I'm being controlled or something by this overwhelming, we want you to be a part of us routine, because it was so foreign to have all these people like you and want you. When you've been rejected all your life, you wonder what's wrong with them. It works in reverse. And also what went along, the freedom I had was the other problem. Because of this lack of family deal, then I had all this freedom to do whatever I wanted. Nobody ever asked me what my grades were, for instance, in school. Nobody cared if I was on a basketball team or a baseball team or played music. Nobody ever came to my basketball games, my choir concerts, my band concerts. My mother would come and watch the plays I was in. So it was almost like I didn't exist. It was where other families all the family be there at the basketball game, cheering on Johnny or whatever, jumping up and down, taking Johnny out for hamburger and malt after the game, with the family. Nobody. It's like I didn't even play.
So now that you think back about all that, how do you put it all in perspective? I mean, how have you come to peace with it?
Well, I realized that having this, what I would call outsider-insider life, because obviously I'm on the inside of a lot of different things, having grown up in all these, and participated in all these different activities. I obviously was an insider. If you're on the basketball team, you're an insider, you're on the team. You're an outsider on the inside. So I call myself an outsider-insider kind of person, always observing things like you do, watching, because I never felt included. Mm-hmm. So everything around me is something I'm watching that I'm not really a part of, other than I act out a role within it, like a play. I take a role, I do something, I'm part of it, but I don't feel like I'm part of it. I'm an independent person in the middle of something, is how I always felt. So that feeling I felt was a real advantage. When I finally broke out of my paradigm, and when I started traveling or exploring all these different places, obviously I was an outsider, wasn't I, on the inside. So I felt really at home when I traveled, because that was a perfect feeling to have. It was comfortable for me to be an outsider, and so I didn't feel uncomfortable in Zimbabwe or those crazy places that you would end up in life if you kept going somewhere. I felt at home on the road. Whereas when I came home to the United States, or would come to this house, that overwhelming rejection was still there. And I couldn't stay more than 2 weeks before I felt so bad being here at home. I could go out on the road and feel way more at home in these weird places.
I understand that, but where are you now? Now that you're at 67 years old, how do you look at it now? You got your own home, you have your own place, there's nobody in your home anymore, all the people that reject you are gone. How do you put everything into perspective?
Well, when I look at the timeline, I see that I'm not married. I don't have any children that I know of. What do I have left? Apparently when you get this old, you realize that the hourglass is running out here. And so, since you can't live for your children, or live for your wife, or live for your family, which you would do if you had them, you see, because it's like George coming here, he really wants to set his family up with a future. And so he's thinking about them and
all right. I understand, George, but go back to you.
Well, I don't have that.
Okay.
Right? So what do I have? I have this situation, which is this farm thing, and there's this horrible, horrible GMO taking over the world, awful, unhealthy thing with food. So I find myself in a position where at least I have a cause that I can lose myself in, and I've been a productive citizen of the planet and of the universe. Having been here, I did try to do the right thing while I was here, and that's about it. Because I don't have the illusion of that I'm going to have a family now, and I'm going to start over and just make up the difference and do what it was that I should have done a long time ago, like settle down, have a family, and have a future, because I don't see a future in this kind of agriculture that surrounds me. Now, of course, the organic, there is a future, but that's a battle. And, I'm used to battling, so I find that a purpose in my life is to try to do the right thing with agriculture, and I can live with that as something to do until I'm not here anymore. I don't see any more than that. So it's kind of how it is. So at least I have that purpose, and I can share that then with younger people. who are, if you look at the bigger picture, we are a huge tribe of human existence. And these children or younger people, even though you may not have had them physically, they're reaching out, looking at the world, trying to find their way in this. And you can work with them, and they'll come to you, because a lot of them don't have parents that make any sense, and they want someone older in their life to tell them the truth, and that's all they're really after. And there's so many lies, kind of, in business and things that we do that aren't, and so young people can get very disillusioned with older people being dishonest all the time, for their agendas. And so they find it refreshing to meet a guy who's just a regular dude who talks straight. It's really refreshing.
So bring it back to your encounter with the Dalai Lama now. So in a sense, you're doing exactly what the Dalai Lama says you need to do.
Yeah, I realize that. That's, again, what we all need to do. And he was just telling me fundamentals of how it works.
And you find
I find myself doing what he's told me to advise me to do. It just, now I understand it. The overall picture is that's what we're supposed to do. All of us are supposed to do that.
All right, Walter, I got a handful here to work with, chew over. Let me call you back some other time and see where I'm at. But I'm getting close, and